Matthew the Apostle was, according to the Bible, one of the 12 apostles of Jesus and, according to Christian tradition, one of the 4 evangelists. In the Bible, among the early followers and apostles of Jesus, Matthew is mentioned in Matthew 9:9 and Mt 10:3 as a publican who sat at the receipt of custom in Capernaum who was called into the ministry of the 12 by Jesus. He is also named among the 12, but without identification of his background, in Mark 3:18, Luke 6:15 and Acts 1:13. He is also called Levi, son of Alphaeus, in Mk 2:14 and Lk 5:27. He may have collected taxes from the Hebrew people for Herod Antipas. Early life: Matthew was a 1st-century Galilean, the son of Alphaeus. As a tax collector he would have been literate in Aramaic and Greek. After his call, Matthew invited Jesus home for a feast. On seeing this, the scribes and the Pharisees criticized Jesus for eating with tax collectors and sinners. This prompted Jesus to answer, "I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." Ministry: The New Testament records that as a disciple, he followed Jesus, and was one of the witnesses of the resurrection and the ascension of Jesus. Afterwards, the disciples withdrew to an upper room in Jerusalem. The disciples remained in and about Jerusalem and proclaimed that Jesus was the promised Messiah. In the Babylonian Talmud, Mattay is one of 5 disciples of Jesu. Later church fathers such as Irenaeus and Clement of Alexandria claimed that Matthew preached the gospel to the Jewish community in Judea, before going to other countries. Ancient writers are not agreed as to what these other countries are. The Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church each hold the tradition that Matthew died as a martyr, although this was rejected by Heraclian as early as the 2nd century. Matthew's Gospel. Although the first of the Synoptic Gospels is technically anonymous, traditionally the Gospel of Matthew was held to be written by the apostle. As a government official in Capernaum, in Galilee of the Gentiles, a tax collector would probably have been literate in both Greek and Aramaic. Greek was the language used in the marketplace. Some early church fathers recorded that Matthew originally wrote in Hebrew, but still regarded the Greek text as canonical. Many scholars today, such as Raymond E. Brown, believe that canonical Mattityahu was originally written in Greek by a non-eyewitness whose name is unknown to us and who depended on sources like Mark and Q, a theory known as Markan priority. However, some scholars, notably Craig Blomberg, disagree variously on these points. The more traditional interpretation of the Synoptic Gospels posits a Matthean priority, most notably in the Augustinian hypothesis after one of the earliest and most notable proponents, Augustine of Hippo. This position, once held with veritable consensus in the medieval church, has since waned, but still has several proponents. The tradition placing the composition of Matthew's Gospel 15 years after the Ascension is very late Nicephorus Callisti and the Paschal Chronicle. Non-canonical or apocryphal Gospels. In the 3rd century, Jewish Christian Gospels attributed to Matthew were used by Jewish Christian groups such as the Nazarenes and Ebionites. Fragments of these Gospels survive in quotations by Jerome, Epiphanius and others. Most academic study follows the distinction of Gospel of the Nazarenes, Gospel of the Ebionites, and Gospel of the Hebrews found in Shneor Melcher's New Testament Apocrypha. Critical commentators generally regard these texts as having been composed in Greek and related to Greek Matthew. A minority of commentators consider them to be fragments of a lost Aramaic or Hebrew language original. The Infancy Gospel of Matthew is a 7th-century compilation of 3 other texts, the Protevangelium of James, the Flight into Egypt and the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. Origen said the first Gospel was written by Matthew. This Gospel was composed in Hebrew near Jerusalem for Hebrew Christians and translated into Greek, but the Greek copy was lost. The Hebrew original was kept at the Library of Caesarea. The Nazarene community transcribed a copy for Jerome which he used in his work. Matthew's Gospel was called the Gospel according to the Hebrews or sometimes the Gospel of the Apostles, and it was once believed that it was the original to the Greek Matthew found in the Bible. However, this has been challenged by modern biblical scholars such as Bart Ehrman and James R. Edwards. Jerome relates that Matthew was supposed by the Nazarenes to have composed their Gospel of the Hebrews, though Irenaeus and Epiphanius of Salamis consider this simply a revised version canonical Gospel. This Gospel has been partially preserved in the writings of the Church Fathers, said to have been written by Matthew. Epiphanius does not make his own the claim about a Gospel of the Hebrews written by Matthew, a claim that he merely attributes to the heretical Ebionites. Commemoration: Matthew is recognized as a saint in the Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Lutheran and Anglican churches. His feast day is celebrated on September 21 in the West and November 16 in the East. He is also commemorated by the Orthodox, together with the other apostles, on June 30, the Synixis of the Holy Apostles. His tomb is located in the crypt of Salerno Cathedral in southern Italy. Like the other evangelists, Matthew is often depicted in Christian art with one of the four living creatures of Revelation 4:7. The one that accompanies him is in the form of a winged man. The three paintings of Matthew by Caravaggio in the Church of San Luigi dei Francesi in Rome, where he is depicted as called by Christ from his profession as gatherer, are among the landmarks of Western art. In Islam, the Quran speaks of Jesus' disciples but does not mention their names, instead referring to them as helpers to the work of God. Muslim exegesis in Quran commentary, however, names them and includes Matthew amongst the disciples. Muslim exegesis preserves the tradition that Matthew, with Andrew, were the two disciples who went to Ethiopia to preach the message of God. Gallery. See also, Mark the Evangelist, Luke the Evangelist, John the Apostle, references. External links: Saint Matthew the Apostle from the Golden Legend, Apostle and Evangelist Matthew, Orthodox icon and Synaxarian, Benedict XVI, Matthew, General Audience, August 30, 2006.